Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome on Youth Matters with your host Sakina Habib. On the auspicious occasion of Eid Zahra, I would like to wish all our viewers a very happy and a blessed Khushali Mubarak. So, what do you think today's topic is going to be about, and what is our discussion going to be about? Parenting, a very complicated yet a topic that needs quite an attention and experience to be able to delve into important factors that parents, especially young parents in this generation, to look into various aspects from the lens of Islam. Obviously, this is a program which is targeted for the youths, and that is why we are bringing to you this episode because it is very important and necessary to highlight the importance of raising children in today's very current situation and generation. As I will be taking you on a journey with a young couple who are young parents and they reside in Qom, Iran, on today's program to enlighten us on the role of an Islamic environment in parenting. And they will be sharing a lot of important real life experiences with us. Without much further ado, I would like to welcome Brother Nadir Hirji and Sister Fatima Hirji on today's program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having us.
Jazakallah, it's an utmost honor and pleasure having you both together on my show. Before we proceed, I would like to briefly introduce my guests. Brother Nader Hirji is a student of the Islamic Seminary, Hausa student in Qom, and he has studied child upbringing and the factors that need to be considered. Originally, Brother Nader is born in Tanzania, has studied in Canada, and lives in Qom for his Islamic studies. And therefore, he can connect very well with the current situations of the West and of Tanzania, as well as of Qom right now. And this is that will really help us in today's discussion. Sister Fatima Hirji is a mom of two, also a student of the Islamic Seminary, Hausa student, and is a founder of Mummy and Munchkin. Now, my first question will be for Brother Nader to begin with. How does one approach parenting in Islam, and what does it mean to be a proper Muslim parent in Islam?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having us. So, what does it actually mean to be a Muslim parent? Well, that really is about what does it mean to be a Muslim. To be a Muslim obviously is to believe in the Usul ad-Din, to believe in Tawheed, that there is one God, in His justice, in the idea that Allah sends prophets to guide us, in Imamat and in Qiyamah. Adala and Imama are specific to Shias. But
Yes.
all Muslims agree that we were created here. We were created to worship Allah. Our goal as human beings is Tawheed. And there's a verse in the Quran actually that says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, where Allah says, I have
Yes.
not created the jinn and the human being except that they worship me. So Allah here is telling us what our goal as human beings is, to worship Allah.
Yeah.
So when we ask what is the role of a Muslim parent, what does it mean to be a Muslim parent, right? It means
Yes.
raising children, right, to know what their goal is. to understand that their goal is to worship Allah, that they have been created to worship Allah. We are supposed to nurture this idea. We're supposed to, as parents, we're supposed to inculcate this idea into them. This is what they're supposed to understand, that we were created to worship.
Thank you very much for summarizing that very beautifully, a very definite meaning that we can get out of that, especially that you have connected it with the ayat, a very universal ayat which everybody can connect with, that it is really about worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Sister Fatima, what according to you is the role of a Muslim mom and a dad in Islam?
Assalamu alaikum again, and thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor.
Pleasure.
So, your question talks about the role of a mom and dad in Islam, right? And first of
Yes,
all, what is the role of a parent itself? A role of a parent
yes,
is to bring out that child's potential to so that they can serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best way possible, to be the best servant of
yes,
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be a good human being. That is the job or the role of a parent with their child and what they need to do. Um, and the most important person in a child's life is the mother. And even in Quran and Hadith, it's been proven multiple times. And I know people say that Islam puts the woman down and the man first, but in
yes,
Islam, in many places, many cases, Allah says that the role of a woman is higher, 3 times higher than a role of a father. And that's where it starts, because she's a woman. Then there's a very famous
exactly.
hadith a saying from Imam Khomeini, that a child's school, a child's first school begins from a mother's lap. And when we take it even further, a child starts before even the child is born. And where does that come from?
Yeah,
From a mother. And then when we look at the father, because the role of a father is extremely important too, and unfortunately, in nowadays world, we do belittle a father's role, and it's so important.
yeah,
A father's role is to, first of all, provide for the family, not just physical
yeah,
providing like money, but providing with everything necessary for the success of the child's upbringing. So that is to help the
yes.
mother and to work hand in hand with the mother to be able to raise a good Muslim child. So it's very important that a mother and father work together, and their role is come together as one to raise their child.
I very much agree with you on this, Fatima. In today's generation, especially, I think in a lot of households, we do find that, couples are, they really have that special bond in cooperating and coordinating and doing things together. In the past, I think there was a lot of that sort of patriarchy system where, the man was expected not to do much, and, the woman was asked to, like, as in all the priorities were burdened on her or thrown at her. But I think there's been an improvement, over time. And I think we've begun to understand, of course, from the lens of Islam. We see in the life of even Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima al-Zahra, salamullahi alayha, when Imam Ali alayhi salam used to help in household chores, helping in cooking and all of that. We've seen in the riwayas, taking care of Hasnain. And, these are some important lessons that we can take from the life of our Aimma, and then also from our Mujtahideens. They have mentioned it so many times by praising their wives, how they give importance to their wives at home. So I think we're doing right. I think we're all on the right track now. and things have very much improved, and this is so important for children because they see and observe, and that's where the love and the bond becomes better and greater over time because they understand the essence of family. Now, brother Nader, I'm sure you would agree with me on this, that not all parents are perfect, right? In fact, I doubt that any parent would consider themselves to be perfect. So, sometimes in situations it happens that some parents might not be following certain morals and etiquettes of Islam, and the child watches, for example, lying, cheating, being harsh, and always fighting with their spouse, not going for salah, something which is very practical. Maybe they see their parents not performing salah, and then the parents tend to complain that my child should not do what I'm doing and should still be a good kid. So the example that I gave, that someone is not going for salah and expects the child to go and pray namaz or salah on their own. What would be the outcome of the child, and what responsibility does a parent play over here?
Honestly, it depends on a lot of things. First of all, I mean, just to put it out there, when I was in university, my first year of university, I took a course in introductory sociology. And one of the topics we dealt with was the sociology of the family. It was an introductory topic. And one of the things that the professor mentioned was that the first 7 years of the child is spent, uh, the phrase that was used was taking the role of the other. That means the child learns through the actions of those people who uh, he or she interacts with. So
Yes.
first and foremost, a child learns through observation. In the formative years of their life, from the beginning all the way up to at least 7, they spend their time learning through observing. And the Holy Prophet, I think this is a very popular hadith now, where he says that the first 7 years of uh, a child's life, the child is the king and the parent is the slave. Um,
Yes.
so in this period, it's extremely important for parents to, I guess, teach through action. So the way parents interact with each other, when they disagree, when they argue, do they argue in public or in front of the child, or do they argue inside the bedroom where the child cannot hear? Um, or,
Mhm.
for example, does the parent pray? Does the parent fast? Right. So on one
Yeah.
hand, this is there, but when you actually look at it in today's, in this day and age, a lot of times we have parents who are not religious, and they might not necessarily pray or fast, but they totally respect their child's choices, right? So let's say if the
Yeah.
parent is not religious and the child is religious, right? The child
Yeah.
holds religious values to be important to them, whereas maybe the father or the mother does not, right?
Yes.
So over here, perhaps the child might see that religion is not very important to my dad or my mom. But at the same time, my mom and my dad encourage me to follow what I believe, right? So it depends on how you look at it. A lot of times, um, parents might not follow something because they don't believe in it, but they respect their child's choices and they encourage their child to walk on that path, right? But now, if we're talking about,
Yeah.
let's say, religious parents, parents who call themselves Muslims, parents who say that, who believe in praying on time, who believe in fasting, who believe in giving charity, who believe that, good akhlaq is that which Islam tells us, right? Uh, Over
Right.
here, if a parent, talks about, tells their child go to the mosque, yes, still wajib for the child to go to the mosque here. But
Yes.
if the child ends up not going to the mosque, for example, if he says, okay, I'm going to the mosque, and then he goes all the way to the front door of the mosque, and then he quickly makes a right turn or a left turn, and then he goes and he buys himself a
Hmm.
pack of cigarettes or I don't know what, right? Then honestly, you can't blame him, right? So, I mean,
Right.
it depends on how you look at it.
It is reality.
Yeah.
What's your take on this, Fatima? Do you want to add something?
No, I think he's mentioned it really well. I should leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, it's very true the way you put it out, Brother Nader. You know, sometimes it's not necessary that parents are religious, but then, uh, they have for example, they instill good akhlaq, and, they have some firm beliefs in other aspects of life. And we really need to, keep a balance. We need to have a balance, I guess. In inculcating Islamic values in children. And I think somewhere along the line, parents automatically become more matured and responsible as they raise children. And they tend to even bring a lot of improvements within themselves as well. I don't know. That's my opinion. Everybody could have their own individual opinions, but I agree with what you said. Now, Sister Fatima, today when we talk about educating a child, right? When should educating a child start from? And I'm not just talking about like ABC and number stuff, but the basics that can start from home, especially in order to inculcate the Islamic values in them.
So I get this question a lot, especially on Mummy and Munchkin, and a lot of times I want to tell everyone that I'm not an expert or a professional, but I do have my own experience, and I have two daughters, so I have learned a lot from them, and at the same time
Okay.
a little bit from them. And so the first
Yes.
thing is that child a child begins learning from the mother's womb, not even when they're born, before that. And that's why there's so
Yeah.
many riwayat or hadith or just advices that people give that when you are pregnant, when you're expecting, do certain things or don't do certain things because it does affect your child. It affects their
Yes.
growth, their way of, just in general, we know the uh,
Or
Yes.
even for example, when the child is born, what is the first thing we do? The Someone goes and whispers, like the azan, the
yes.
ikama, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
Yes.
that's a good point. I mean, there's a reason why we do that, right? So
Exactly.
a child's learning does not begin from the time they go to school. And a lot of people, unfortunately, have this idea, or not all, just some people have this idea that, the only time your child is actually learning or starting school or madrasa education is when they actually go to school, when they actually go to madrasa, when they actually go to a place with a teacher and that
Yes.
interaction happens. The truth is that a child learns in every moment of its life, of his or her life.
Yeah.
A child learns from the moment they are born, before they were born, after they're born, in the process of their age as they grow. And even the slightest thing like picking a piece of paper and putting it back down is a learning process for a child. Sometimes we feel like my child is sitting home all day, and my child, I'm asking my child to cut vegetables for me. That's a process of learning. A child is learning practical
Mm.
life skills that can help in both ways.
Yes.
Some of the few methods of a child learning, I find the most important ones are observation.
Yes.
Another one is action, and through modeling. So observation, our kids learn through watching. Like the first few years of our kids' lives, especially when they're not talking, when they can't express much, they're observing. They're like sponges. They're taking everything in. A lot of times, we parents feel like, oh, they're still very young. If I put some music around,
Mhm.
They won't realize it. It's not they're still young. Or for example,
Yes.
if I say a swear word, or if I speak to my husband a certain way, she's still young.
Mm.
She won't get into the mental. It won't affect her mental state, but it does affect
Yes.
a child. Learns through observation the first. After that, it's action. So now a child is watching you, watching its environment, and a child learns through that, because for a child, that's their first way. Like, how do I know this is the right way? How do I know how to eat? Oh, look how mommy is eating. Look how Baba is eating. Oh, they're using a spoon. They're using a fork.
Yeah.
And modeling is so important. Now, this is for us, that we need to teach our kids, but we don't say you do it. You see, even with your previous question to Nader, you don't just tell your child do this or do that. You need to model for them. And when you model, that's when they learn better, they understand better. Because a lot of times our kids, especially nowadays kids, they'll tell you, why aren't you doing it? If you're not doing it, why should I do it? But it's the truth. They're being
Very.
honest. The part about
Yes.
children is that they're very honest, so they will tell you exactly what's in their mind. And
I'd like, if
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't mind,
yeah,
can I add
yeah,
something?
yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, actually. A lot of times, a child, our children can be extremely difficult. Um, in fact, if you actually look at the characteristics of, uh, a child, and if you were to take those characteristics and put them on an adult, you'd say this adult
Yes.
is like the worst humanity, right? Because you're like, okay, selfish, demanding, impatient,
Mm-hmm.
shouts a lot, etc., 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 etc. Eats with his mouth open, you know, eats like this,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
Tantrums.
Tantrums, you know what I mean?
Tantrums. Exactly. I was gonna say
So
that.
now, if you actually look at, if you were to take these characteristics and put them on a man or a woman, a grown person, you'd be like, I have no desire to like associate with you, you know. And but now, if you look at the child, these things are totally normal, right?
Because
Yeah.
they're
And
learning.
they're learning, and in fact, so I mean, I thought about this, and I'm like, in actual fact, it's not the child who's learning from us; it's we who are learning
Yeah,
from
from
the
the
child.
child.
The child
Yes.
teaches us how to learn, how to deal with impatient people, how to deal with people who throw tantrums. Uh, in actual fact, I would say that a child is the best form of dars akhlaq, as we say it in the Hausa. The best akhlaq teacher is a child.
Awesome.
So I mean, we need to look at that as well. That education, yes, the child starts learning very early on, but we're also in the process of learning from them.
I always say this to other moms, that I know it's hard and it's tough sometimes when you're dealing with just everything with your child, and it's definitely very difficult. But understand one
Yes.
thing: you're not the only one teaching your child. In the process of your child growing, you are growing yourself. You're teaching yourself. So if you look at it in that way, it's a two-way thing. And most or all parents will agree with us that um, after they've had a child is when they've realized the reality of life, and they've realized the struggles, and they've realized how to be more patient, or just everything that Islam tries to tell us, that be this way, be that way. A child kind of teaches us in that way, because if an adult did the
Yes.
same thing, we would quickly shut them off, because we're two adults. When a child does it, especially your own someone who has come out from your own self, you
Yes.
have to have the patience. And I just wanted to mention one more thing, that so back to the question where you mentioned that how do we instill those values of Islam? The same thing as what we mentioned earlier. A child will learn through you, through
Yeah.
observing, through your actions. So you don't have to sit there, especially in the early years, and tell them alif bata or Quran is saying this, Quran is saying that. No, your environment, put Quran for them instead of music. Put
Mm.
some what's it called, nasheeds or anything. It all depends on your family setup. If your family does not enjoy Quran all the time, sometimes it can get very tiring. I'm not saying it's tiring, but for some people it may be. You can put up
Yes.
fun things for your child. I remember in the first few years, my daughter would find it a little hard to listen to Quran all the time. She'd be like, "Mommy, can you put something else?" Because it's a child. A child needs more rhythm and stuff. So we tried to find a more rhythmic, if that's the correct word, of Quran.
Like what they do on Kisa Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or for example,
effectively.
put up nasheed or matams, or just the environment is so important. It actually will help your child grow up with that, with the beliefs and the you're not forcing your child. Remember, you're not saying Allah is one, Prophet is Muhammad, Quran is the book. No, you're actually showing the beauty of all this through your actions, how it's affecting you when you and your husband are in good relation, and you talk to each other with kindness, you have respect with each other. And when your child asks you, "Why are you not shouting at mommy? Why did you not get angry at mommy?" And you say that, "Because Allah tells me not to." The child will love Allah for that. Right?
Did I tell you?
Very well put.
Did I tell you about, like, we, for this Muharram, the lecturer, he actually he mentioned something. He was saying that, okay, someone goes to a senior scholar and he says, "How do I get my child to pray sincerely and cry during their namaz?" So the scholar looks at him, he says, "Easy. Pray and cry during your namaz." You know what I mean? It's really that simple. Like, one of the things we really wanted to do is that we wanted our child to love namaz. And a lot of times we see parents, or at least in the culture that I was raised in, uh, and it's that when someone is praying, this is the most sacred thing, and we're speaking to Allah, and we have to speak to Allah, and no one is allowed to interrupt us, right?
It's important.
Actually, when you look at Aghay Abbasi's books, right? He goes and he says, "Listen, do this, your kid is not going to enjoy or even be attracted towards namaz." He says, "Look, first of all, when if your child wants to play with you while you're in namaz, it's okay. Don't scold them. They want to steal them more. Let them steal them more. Just keep another more in your pocket, right? And when you
Yeah.
finish your namaz, don't be like, why did you take my more? No, don't do that. That's not right." Or another thing is, for example, if the child wants to play with you, right? At that point,
Right.
when it's just namaz time, namaz is wajib, yes, right? But Aghay Abbasi over here says that praying on time, all right, sometimes you can actually delay a little bit over here and be like, "Okay, let's play." We play, we wrestle, we do whatever, and then at a certain point, we like, "I had so much fun playing with you. But now I have to, I want to speak to Allah. Can I just speak to Allah really quickly, and then we'll play some more?"
Like, you ask for permission.
Yeah, you ask for permission, and
Permission,
you'd be
exactly.
surprised how reasonable children are.
We've actually tried this with our older daughter, and it's really worked for
Okay.
us, especially the beginning years of our parenting. It really worked for
Okay.
us. We really saw change and a big love for all this from our child because of this, these little points. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sakina, I
Amazing.
wanted to ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure,
So
go ahead.
Alhamdulillah, you're also a mother, mashallah.
Yes,
And I wanted
yes.
to ask you,
Alhamdulillah.
what kind of environment do you live in, and how do you raise your child in that environment? Because you're over there, we're here. We have a very different environment, you have a very different environment. So what's your take on this?
Okay, thanks actually for asking me this question. And I'll be honest, parenting is a very huge responsibility. And, as even Brother Nader mentioned earlier, that we are all in a learning process. And I'll be honest with you on this, Fatima. Even while I was pregnant, I was like very particular and very careful. We there was this book that has surahs and amals every month. I was doing that consistently, and I tried my level best to keep away from all the haram acts and everything that you can, whatever the best that you can do. I tried doing that. That's one. Then it was very challenging because it's just me and my husband at home from the time I was expecting until the time during my delivery and after delivery. So we've been on our own, and this is my I have a 1 year old. She's actually 14 months, and being a first time mother and a first time father, a very new experience for the both of us. But Alhamdulillah, what I noticed that we've really evolved as a couple and as a mother and father. Every day, in fact, we evolve. The way Brother Nader said that children are there's a akhlaq. I agree with you on this. What I'm learning from my daughter on a daily basis, now I have come to realize that motherhood is actually strength and power. I have always been very, you can say, ambitious, very career oriented, and I thought that that's what it is all about, and when I conceived and had my daughter, and I experienced something beyond. I can't even express it. Something more magical, and I am so thankful to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that every day I am becoming stronger because of my daughter, and I owe her so much in my life. And for me, about as you said, raising her up in an environment such as Tanzania. So Alhamdulillah, that the environment over here is not very like outlined. I wouldn't say that. It's pretty sober, very low profile, especially where I live in Arusha. I think Fatma, you can relate to that because you are from Arusha as well. So we can relate. The Jamaat here is good. We have madrasa system and all of that. But let me be honest, right? I think the actual upbringing starts from home. The way you said, Fatima, it starts from the laps of a mother. So I try doing that a lot from my side as much as I can, even though I'm a very, very busy mother. And I'll be honest with you, when I delivered my daughter, I think it was probably I was in my fifth or sixth month, and I was going through this process of falling into sort of a depression, and I needed therapy, and to talk to people, to connect with people, that sort of in a way healed me. And I realized that much in life, there's so much out there that talking about Islam and all of that, that sort of pulled me out from that. And I would want my daughter to take lessons from this as well. When I communicate sometimes and I talk, so she sees me, and she babbles, and she imitates me. You see, that's how children are. And even during the Ayam Muharram right now, so although she's just 14 months, but my mom would literally video call and tell me that make sure you make her wear black clothes, and teach her what is azadari. And at that time, the way you said, we think, oh, she's just a baby, what would she understand? But uh, when I read the riwayas and I heard in the majalises, the kind of effect that that has on a child goes a long way. Even Imam Zamana alayhi salam, will accept people in his lashkar, they say, because we are doing this azadari for Imam Hussein, and it's something which is a powerful movement. So we need to teach our children these small things. And then sometimes I would put nohas for her, and she would actually like imitate doing matam on her own. And so these are some of the things that made me happy, like, oh my god, at least she's getting some things. Of course, I'm not a perfect mom, and there are times when I honestly do put her on like screen time, because I'm so busy working, and I have no choice. I do regret at that time, because I feel that I'm failing as a mother at some point. And then I realized that they're so curious, they're so inquisitive, they want to do a lot of activities, So in such a situation, I thought that it's better if I should put her in a preschool, because they do more hand and motor skill activities and more cognitive skills. So instead of sitting at home and being in front of the TV screen, it's better at least to put her in an environment where she can get a bit of physical activity work. And it's a good school. It's not it's not like the environment is bad. There are bohoras, and their etiquettes and manners and akhlaq are very much related to our style. And I sometimes go with her, I monitor her, I see what they're doing, and I'm really happy with that. And at home, we give her our own environment, so the way you said, teaching them how to eat. So we make them sit on a chair next to us, and we tell them that this is family time, it's dinner time, and that's how they learn, right? It starts from small, and then it goes along the way. So Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy, and I thank my husband, a very big support, for uh, being very flexible, very cooperative with me on this as well. So really, if a husband and wife work together, then it becomes very much easier, in life to life. I mean, sorry, day to day, in our day to day activities. Um, I hope that that answered your question. I don't know what the future holds, but I go with the saying of Imam Ali alayhi salam that we need to move with time and generation. So I always keep this hadith in my mind, and I would want the same for my daughter, that she should be steadfast when it comes to having those Islamic values, and at the same time, she should be connected with the current affairs that are going on around the world. She should be involved with all of that and be always ahead of time, ahead of the game of the world. So I think that's what even our mujtahideen say, that when it comes to knowledge and education, seek as much as you can, so that you're always on top of your game. So yeah, that's what I would say from my side. Now, Sister Fatima, I would like to pose a question to you, and that is that let's talk about today's generation of parenting. How do you think, has it changed, or is it still the same? What would you like to say on that?
Begone.
It has definitely changed. Every single one of us will agree on that. Changed completely, from the
Yeah,
beginning to the end. That's why we always try to bring in our morals and everything slowly back in, which is another, challenge and struggle. But yes, definitely it has changed. And for example, the ways that it has changed is our lifestyles have changed, our housing
yes,
has changed. How has housing changed, and how does that affect our children? Um, Nowadays, or in the current generation, we live in buildings and apartments, and it makes children stay in smaller areas, and they find it harder to play and explore more. So and this is actually there's a hadith on it, or is it part of the book, Nadir? But I read this somewhere that, oh yeah, it's part of the book that we're currently doing, and it says that one of the reasons why a child's the methods of them learning, or the way that they grow, has changed, is because of the way we live, our lifestyle. That's why there is a sunnah way of living, a more open place. Like the hammam is outside, and that whole
yeah,
traditional stuff. A reason to
yes,
it, because a child can, like, it's just a doorway to the outside world. For a building,
yes,
you have to go all the way down, and it takes time for you to even process it. Oh, I have to go all the way down to go
yeah,
to the streets. Another method that nowadays is learning through screens, the internet,
yes,
social media. The biggest one right now. It's literally at the tip of our hands right now. Our children are learning to say salamun alaikum, not through us, but through maybe a rhyme on the phone, saying we say salamun alaikum to all our friends. Okay, my daughter
yeah,
listens to that. That's why I heard it. But it's all screens. So I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it has
yeah,
definitely changed. A child's
yeah,
attention is now, there are different things and different people trying to grab our child's attention. It's not just the
yeah,
parent or the extended family or a teacher. There are multiple things now, multiple people who are trying to grab the kids' attention. For example, billboards, advertisements, movies, shows. Right now, for older kids, movies are a big problem. If you look at Netflix, it's full of,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's full of nonsense. They're forcing
True.
things on our children. It's so hard to find a decent movie. It's so hard to find a decent way of entertaining yourself these days
There's a
because the
special
world
one
has
for kids, I think, right? On Netflix. I think there's a
given
special
us.
like category. I don't know.
It is. We've
There is.
actually looked through it.
Yeah.
It's safe for kids, but honestly, you should really look
If
through it. Would you
no.
really want your child to be looking at a girl dressed up in
Exactly.
half? These little details we don't realize, but then it does affect a child. And if you aren't sure what your child is learning from this, ask them questions. They will tell you. Like, for example, the movie Moana. I don't know if most of you know
Yeah.
about it. It's very famous. Um, there's a part where first of all, her dressing. My daughter is asked about the dressing. Secondly, there's a part where the father and the daughter have an argument. For us, we didn't really catch it at that moment. But my daughter is like, Mommy, why is she so angry at her Baba? And that is such a big thing because she's learning from that. Oh, is it okay to shout at my father? Is it okay to get angry? So
Yeah.
honestly, these things they play a big role in our children. And the increased access of social media has resulted in our children being raised by other than the parents. You know, their
Very true.
first teacher is not a mother's lap, it's
Yes.
their friends, outside world, the social media, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these things. It's really scary for our children. So definitely,
Not
going back
just
to your question, though, it really has changed. The methods have changed. The way of raising our children has changed.
not just for our children, for us as well. One of the things that the scholars over here in Qum have been talking about is the idea that the world is currently going through, or Muslims are currently going through, what is known as a soft war.
Okay.
So on one hand, for example, you had groups like, let's say, ISIS going after, um, trying to destroy the harem of Bibi Zainab, or the harems of Aba Abdullah and Hazrat Abbas and Imam Ali alayhim salam. Uh, I mean, they were even successful like 15 years ago or something, when they destroyed the Samarra. But
Yes.
this is one kind of war. But then there's the other war. It's called the soft war. The
Yeah.
war that is being fought today with weapons, that's a hard war. That's a war for people's lives, right? But then you
Mhm.
have this
Definitely.
war, not for it's not a war for people's lives, it's a war for the soul. You see?
Yes.
In that war, if you die, let's say, defending the haram, I mean, you might be called a shaheed, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
but when you look at this war, the soft war, it's a war for the soul, meaning they're trying to get you to change your ideas to go a different way. So if they catch you over here, right, then you're not a
Yeah.
shaheed. In fact, you die as an enemy of Islam, right?
Oh,
So it's
right.
really, really important to understand this, that um, when we look at social media, when we look at these billboards, when we look at these programs that are on TV, when we look at the stuff that's coming on iPad and whatnot, right? These things are not just going after our attention, they're going after our akhirah. It's extremely important to understand this, because if we just give our children a free hand in these things, if we give ourselves a free hand, if we constantly use our phones without noticing, at some point, some idea will just implant itself into our heads, and it'll just change everything. So it's really important to look at social media and to actually look at this with this eye and see how much it can manipulate a human being. I'm sure a lot of people have watched that documentary, what was it, The Social Dilemma, right? And if you haven't, I highly recommend that you watch it and you see how social media can
Crazy.
manipulate someone into doing certain things. So yeah,
In
just my
fact,
two
I
cents.
think there was something.
Yeah.
There was a thing I just read a few days ago that the owner of WhatsApp and what's it called, for Facebook, um,
Yeah.
he himself doesn't let his own kids use these platforms. There all these social media platforms or Netflix and all these things. And I keep mentioning Netflix because I know right now the youth are and the people are really hooked to it right now. That's like their entertainment place, and they know it. That's why they're
Yes.
taking advantage. But their own family members are asked, please don't use this stuff. It's really dangerous. We don't want you to get stuck into it because they know the problems in it, right?
Wow.
Like
Right.
there's one thing they say that KFC,
Yeah.
the guy himself doesn't let his kids eat it. Why? It's delicious, right? It's supposed to be delicious,
Right.
you know. Something like that.
Doesn't beat our
Oh my
sekela
God.
though.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's so many things that, we can talk about. I think parenting is such a vast issue. Like, we can have a series literally just on this topic, and we would still not come to a final conclusion. Because everybody has a different style and way of doing it. And it's just really figuring out what's the right and the best way of raising our kids, especially in today's, fast-paced world filled with technology and social media platforms. It's very difficult, even us, like, we're young parents, and, we ourselves are on social media platforms, right? Because it's like a part of life. If we disconnect, then, it's like you're losing out on something, or somewhat or the other. So we need to really find a balance, in how to control and monitor ourselves and our children. So for today's episode, we will be wrapping up today's session, but I have a good news for our viewers that we will be having a continuation part two of the same topic in our next episode with my humble guests, Brother Nader and Sister Fatima. So we can further discuss on this topic, because we still have a lot of questions that need to be spoken and addressed about. So, inshallah, we will be catching you in the next episode. Thank you, Brother Nader, and thank you, Sister Fatima, for joining me today. It was a pleasure having them. Inshallah, I'll be catching you next week again to talk about this topic, inshallah. I hope all of you are keeping in good health. And a Khushali Mubarak to all of you once again. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.